We are live.
Welcome, everybody,
Hello, welcome.
to the This Is
Welcome.
Not Therapy Hour
Yeah.
for
I'm
so
Brandon.
many reasons. I'm Caitlin Miller.
We are licensed therapists, but this is not therapy for very, very many reasons.
So
Uh,
many innumerable reasons. Don't
but
ask us why.
they're numerous. They're numerable, but
No, I'm just kidding.
um, yeah, this is not therapy. It is just an open conversation. Caitlin and I are here talking with each other and with you all. We're doing our best to make our guesses about who you are and what you're interested in and how we're coming across to you and impacting you. For those of you who are willing and able to participate in the chat, we appreciate that because it gives us a lot more information on which to base those guesses. Uh, we do our best to read out the comments as they come in because we're streaming on multiple platforms at once, and people will only see the comments on their particular platform. So we read them out to keep everyone on the same page. Please don't hold back or hesitate or worry about whether what you want to say is on topic or not on topic. It's like any other conversation. We'll go where we go. Uh, we're here talking all together, right? If you were at a party and there were you and two other people talking, and those two people are having a conversation that's interesting to them and boring to you, like you'd want to speak up, right? Let them know what you're thinking. We work with a private therapy practice called Effective Artistry. Our office is located in Northbrook, Illinois. We do individual, couples, family, and group therapy with people in the states of Illinois and Wisconsin. We also work with some executive functioning coaches that can work with people all over the world via the internet, and additionally, they do other things like parenting coaching and business and professional coaching. Am I missing anything, Caitlin? What am I missing? Nothing. Okay. I'll say off the top that we will not be doing a stream next week. We usually do this every Monday, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time. Next Monday, we will not have a stream. Well, unless you want to do it without me. I will be out of the office next Monday. So there's
No stream.
2 weeks a year that I try to actually like take off a week of work. And one is this one where my family and I go to Utah, where I'm from, and see my family and friends over out there. But yeah, what's going on? What's up with you, Caitlin? What's on your mind?
Oh, I'm just tired. So,
Yeah,
where would you like to start, Brendan Tessers?
we can start about tired. I'm a little tired too.
Okay, I have something that I do want us to talk about, which I
Oh,
think would be continuing to build off of last week. I forgot where we ended. That's why I'm not giving you a more specific prompt.
you're talking about like creativity
Yeah.
process and stuff. Uh, so last week, and yeah, we won't like repeat all that stuff from last week because otherwise it'll take the whole time again. But
Mhm.
we identified the difference between like what's creativity, what's artistry, etc. So what we're talking about is what people would generally call the creative process, but I like to call the artistic process because it's specifically about trying to make art. Um, and so some of the things that we pointed out is that having a process like this is for people who are trying to make money off of their art. If you're not trying to make money off your art, then you don't need the point of a process is so that you can do things even when you're not like, I guess I'll say feeling it. Like
Mhm.
when you're not inspired, I suppose. Um,
Mhm.
if you're not intending to try to make money off your art, then you can just do your art when you want to do it. There's no need to go through a thing of like, here's my process of how I get myself to do my art, even when I'm not feeling inspired or, like
Mhm.
I play guitar and I sing, and I don't have a process for either of those things anymore. I did at one point when I was trying to be a musician.
Mhm.
Sometimes I go months at a time without sitting down to play guitar. Sometimes I play every day for 3 weeks in a row. Uh, it's just when it's convenient, when I have time, when I feel like doing it. I don't need to have a process.
Mhm.
So this is for people who are, I need to get something done on this.
Mhm.
Is that like a good? I'm trying to like set the ground rules of what we're talking about.
Yeah, that was all good. I don't know where we stopped though.
Yeah. Um,
But
we
I
kind of
feel
went
like
all over the place.
what?
Uh, we were jumping all over the place, but I think at the end of the conversation, we were talking about like alpha and beta audience and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that is where we ended.
This, yeah, right. This doesn't seem like it's what's on your mind right now. I could be misreading that.
You are accurate about that, but the stuff I want to talk to you that's on my mind is an off-stream conversation. So accurate read, but not for the stream. And I'm in a lot of pain right now, but I genuinely want to like learn about, but I'm in physical pain. And like not to the threshold where I would like not do the stream, but that's part of like the more, what is it, like muted affect or whatever? Like I feel less,
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I guess muted affect is an accurate term, although that's not what I was uh, observing or
But
referencing.
there's stuff that I want to chat with you outside of the stream. So
Yeah, well, that's fine. But
validate and redirect.
yeah, you don't need to do that. Uh,
Okay.
we still want to do something engaging, though, you know, and so, okay, when we're talking about having a process for something, process is one of those words that people use for a lot of different things. And for the most part, like, don't really have any specific meaning tied to it. But
Hmm.
generally, when we're talking about a process, we're talking about like some series of steps
Yeah.
that you go through. Um, a series of steps designed to like produce a particular outcome.
Hmm.
When we're talking about processing information, that actually still is true, even though we're talking about certain specific outcomes that we're trying to generate. We're trying
Hmm.
to take information and then make it so that we can act on that information in a useful way. There's steps to that. But as with most of these things, like the point of this is that there's stuff, all humans at all times will do things automatically. Automatically meaning without any conscious consideration, with no
Hmm.
conscious thought or choice or effort. That's just what you do.
Hmm.
That's the vast, vast majority of what we do.
Hmm.
You know, if nothing else, while you're asleep for 6 hours to 8 hours to 10 hours, whatever, however long you sleep, you have no conscious thought going into all that. Even in moments in which you do have conscious thought, that conscious thought is like very narrowly defined around like just this, and everything else that your body is doing is still not conscious. So this kind of process um, we're talking about like an active thing, something that you're consciously engaging in an effort to accomplish something. And for the most part, the point of a process is that you can get yourself to engage in it even when you don't have it happening automatically by impulse.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that there is sometimes a misconception for people that there are times where, in this case with art, there are times where I engage in doing my art without having to put any conscious thought or effort into it. There are times in which I'm engaging in my art and it's just like super fun and interesting to me, and I
Yeah.
will be doing it. And then people think that what we're trying to accomplish, because then that's not happening, right? And so I'm not doing it,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to
Yeah.
get myself to do it. And people seem to think generally that the trick is figuring out how to make it so that you will automatically do it and that you will enjoy it, when that is by definition like
Yeah.
you're already doing it when you enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you need is something to make it so that it happens even when you don't feel like it.
Well,
And yet,
and that like confluence, that corner is what I am interested in becoming better equipped to help people with, and part of why I want to learn your creative process, artistic process. Um,
so
but yeah, I think that's an important myth busting element of it.
we can talk about the process, the creative process, through a couple of different lenses. And one is like when we're talking about the way that someone processes information. One is we're observing something which already happens and just kind of
Hmm.
breaking down and labeling the steps involved in that.
Hmm.
The other is we're talking about a conscious set of steps that a person can like engage in.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, we do want, to the best of our ability, we want to build a process that makes it so that as soon as possible, ideally, like the chances are as high as possible that you get interested in it, it becomes enjoyable. That's not
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
possible, but we want to design it that way. But you don't
Yeah.
want to design a process that relies on it, right? Like if step 1 and 2 are to do things that get you excited or interested, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
work, you don't do step 3, which again, we're back to this is not really a conscious process then.
Yeah. Yeah.
In other words, if you're trying to make money off your art, then we were talking about it as your job. And
Mm-hmm.
while this is not ideal, ideally, people can just do what they want when they have the impulse to do it and when they feel like it, and it'll be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're making your money off of something, then we all recognize that that means that even when you don't feel like doing it, it's important to do it. In the same way that ideally we would all like want to eat the right amount of food at the right times intrinsically, and the food that's like going to be best for us both in the short and the long term. But that doesn't in practice always happen. And it's important for us to like make ourselves eat when it's important to eat, even if we don't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is a little bit of like people want to reject that possibility. Like, no, I shouldn't be doing this if it's not making me happy or I'm not having fun doing it, which again is totally fine. But then you can't do it. You cannot reliably predict what you will feel like or enjoy doing at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
So
could you maybe go through the steps of what your creative process is, like highlight each step, and then we could dive into each one?
So we're, like I said, we're talking about like 2 different things, and I'm going to try and weave them together, where we're talking about like what is the process that happens, and then how do we turn that into something that we can consciously engage in.
Well, I would maybe say it's not what is the process that happens, but like what language have you developed to describe the process that happens? Because I feel like people talk about it in different ways, but like,
well,
does that
sure,
make sense?
that doesn't
But
mean it isn't the process, right? Like, so like the first step in this process is gathering information, consumption.
Yeah.
Talk about
Yeah.
it. Like you said, you can use different language for it. But
Okay, can I back you up for a second to make sure I'm listening to you? So part of it is the actual process that happens and the language that you use to describe it. And then the other part is helping people, if they are choosing to try to make money off of art and that's their job, to engage in the process, even if in that specific moment they don't feel inherent like joy in engaging in the process.
right. So this is the process
Yeah.
of how art gets made.
Yeah.
And for each of those steps, we want to talk about if you are consciously trying to get yourself to do this
Yeah.
process, here are things that we can like, here are some practical, actionable things that you can try to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the first step in this, I mean, because it's cyclical, you could say that it starts at any step, but we're choosing this one to start. Does that make sense?
I like you highlighting that because sometimes I get, oh, I just thought of a counter argument you would say, and then I was like, it's not even worth saying.
Just say it. You don't have to.
No, I'll just stop at, I like that you highlighted that it's a cycle because I
So
think that's a good reminder for people.
we did talk last week about we can break down these steps into 2 larger categories, which is ideation and execution.
Ideation and execution. Yeah.
I like to call that, when I'm working on this with people, I like to call the ideation part creativity, the creation, and the execution craft. So like but one part is happening in cognition, one part is happening in the real world.
Yeah.
And all things, not just art, anything that we're engaged in with conscious thought that's attached to what we're trying to do or accomplish, it's a cycle. We get information, we utilize that information in some way, we come up with ideas, then we execute on those ideas, we observe what happens, which gives us more information, and then we come up with new ideas, and we test it and observe, and it cycles. And ideally, this is with all things, but especially relevant for this conversation, ideally you want a very tight cycle. You want to be able to like come up with an idea, execute it, get information, come up with new ideas, execute, just constantly back and forth. We'll talk about that with art specifically. But so because it's a cycle, you could start anywhere. And I do actually think that, like, I choose to start at this part of the cycle, gathering information, where I think most people generally, not that they think of it these terms, but if they're talking about artistic endeavors, most people generally start at what I think is the next step, which is coming up with an idea.
Yeah.
How do I get an idea? Or I have an idea, now how do I take action on it?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better to start with this as our first step, even though you can start anywhere in the cycle, because it makes it much more actionable, much easier to be able to approach it, because consumption is a really, really important part of the process. And again,
so can I be your guinea pig in this example, and I'll
sure,
like give you, okay, so I have an idea to write an album where each song is based off of an archetypal dialogue with a tarot card, and the song is based off of like the practice of dialoguing with the tarot card. And so how would you describe the information gathering stage, if that is the, I
well,
know I'm
so
already, I know, yeah.
good.
Sorry, just, are you gonna say, Caitlin, you're doing the thing that I just said, which is like you're starting with the idea and not with the information gathering?
Well, sure, in this conversation, right? So you did do information gathering that led you to this idea.
Yes, yeah,
But so then we can talk about it on different levels, right? I have the idea,
yeah.
this is a fairly high level idea. When it comes time to sit down and be like, okay, what tarot card do I want to write a song about? And I'm going to start writing this song, then it's it's its own cycle, right? It's its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So gathering information, I think we can break that down into the thing that I think is most important, but there's nothing you can do anything about it really. We call it learning, which is just passive learning, basically. Like without any specific intention or deliberation or whatever, you're taking in information. Now, translating that into being actionable, try to decide if I want to do like the three like steps and then the three actionable steps, or one to one, or whatever. For this one, let's do a couple steps and then we'll talk about the actionable stuff.
Okay.
So there's passive learning. Just by being a human who exists, you are taking in information from your environment. That's like your, when you talk about the artist's well, maybe sometimes they're talking about that. It's like everything that you know and can draw on. When we talk about artists have to live lives and have experiences, yeah, like just through the normal.
It's interesting, after watching the movie you told me to watch, Brandon, K-pop Demon Hunters, right? Is that what it's called?
Great movie. Yeah.
Now when I write songs, I'll have moments where I'm like da da da, like there's like little moments of like pop super, like the kind of, yeah, it's funny to notice. Yeah, it's funny to notice like shifts in even the melodies that just pop into my body, I guess. Not even, it doesn't feel like my mind, my body, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, like
Demon Hunters is now in the well. Oh.
So when we talk about, when we talk about actionable stuff, we'll talk about what kind of experiences you can try to have and stuff. But
Yeah.
yes, by having experiences, by being alive, you draw in information. Then you want to identify a problem set from among all the things that you have picked up information. So again, I think people skip this step generally.
Oh, I totally skipped this, at least my so far conceptualization of what you're saying.
Artists sometimes have a tendency to be very focused on like, here's a cool thing, and I want it to exist because it's cool. Now, there's reasons that you think it's cool, and theoretically it would follow this.
Yeah, I don't think of that as a belittling statement.
We get focused on what I will usually refer to as either the piece of art, or the artifact, the thing that's been created.
Yeah.
Which again, people generally call just the art, but I think it's better to use that term in a different way. So they tend to get focused on what is the piece that I want to create. But that comes second, or well, third, I guess, whatever, to what is the problem? What is it that is different than I would like it to be? And that can happen in all different kinds of ways. But that's the question. There is something that is different than I would like it to be. Something is happening that I don't like and I want it to stop. Something is not happening that I think would be good and I want to make it happen. something is happening in a particular way, but I think it would be better if it happened in a different way. You can do that on all different kinds of scales. Sometimes,
Yeah.
yes, they're coming this from like, I want to change the world, right? Like there's art
Yeah.
that's very political, where there's very
Mhm.
deliberate attention being paid to like, I'm trying to affect change on a broader philosophical or political level. And some art is very micro, very personal. Like I want,
Mhm.
you know, I want the person who hears this to not feel so alone,
Mhm.
right? Because remember from last week we talked about art, the way I think it's most
Can
useful
I
to talk.
try to?
Go
Oh,
ahead.
keep going, Brendan.
Okay.
Um, I the language of problem I'm getting a little stuck on, but I think my answer to is I like the technique of archetypal dialogue. I think it helps people expand in a way that is useful for like Western hyper individualistic society. I think it could be a useful technique for people who are stuck in creating their own art. And so I want to create the album to.
You're talking about the theory, which we'll talk about, although we just got some comments to look at here in a second.
Oh, okay, cool. I can't see them, so you're welcome to just read them,
Talk about
Brandon.
the theory. Well, let me respond to this first.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So part of this model that I teach people is I need to get a better name for this because it's not pithy, but OATO.
Odom.
Yeah. OATO.
I love Brandon's Odom.
OATO is like observation. What do you notice? What are you observing?
Uh-huh.
Aim. What would you prefer to be reality? What would you prefer to be happening or observing? Theory is what could happen that might change it so that what you're observing becomes more like the aim. So things change. The second O then is operation or operationalization. What is the thing you can do to test that? If that theory was accurate, then by doing these set of steps, we would see the change. And then M is the measure. Okay, we've taken these steps. Now let's pay attention. Did the thing that we were trying to change actually change? So you did talk in there about the problem, which for one you said was other people who want to make art but are struggling to make art. So I'm
And
aware
also,
of this, and I want them to be able to make art, their art.
yeah, I'll try to not add to it because we're going to read the comments too, but yeah.
So that's where we're going to start, because art to me, the way I think is useful to talk about it is communication with an unspecified audience, right? At the point at which you are creating the art, you're not aware, don't have specific information about who the audience is going to be. You can create your own construct to help you in the process. But so if you're going to communicate something, then communication is an attempt to change the way that somebody else thinks or feels or acts. So you got to identify what is the thing that other people are thinking or feeling or doing that I think I would want to be different. They're feeling like this and I want them to feel like this. They're thinking this and I want them to think this. You start with the problem. What is it that they're thinking or feeling or doing that I would like to be different? Then the aim. What do I want it to be instead? Then the theory. If I were to accomplish X, would that shift them from what it is to what do I think it would shift them from what it is to what I want it to be? We'll come back to stuff.
Okay, cool.
Here are these comments.
I
don't want to derail anything, but if there's time, I wanted to ask about tips you might give a friend or family member if they were diagnosed with ADHD in their 30s. I started Adderall.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I started Adderall in May, and I think it's been helping, but I still experience difficulty with finishing tasks I start, usually when drive/motivation flags, and also with starting tasks that are intimidating or unapproachable, or at least appear comparatively so against other tasks. For context, I got diagnosed with hyperactive impulsive, but there are elements of my experience which I understand would be classified under an inattentive presentation or maybe more as separate executive dysfunction issues. Hopefully this isn't too far from what you're discussing, because I think I can relate to your conversation too. Yeah, great question. Thank you for the information. First thing I'm going to say.
Brendan, would you mind copying that and sending it to me on GChat?
Sure.
Yeah, so I can reread it as you're answering you.
Actually, I'm not sure how to.
Actually, I might be able to join the stream on a different device and just read the comments too. That's an
I
option.
I'll send it to you, but in order to do that, I had to copy all of the comments, including, oh wait, I can just delete because there was a spam one about how to get more viewers or whatever. All right, there you go.
Okay, thank you, Brandon.
So I appreciate the information. And if you're willing and able, please don't feel pressured to, but I might like ask some questions or throw some things out. And if you want to answer or clarify, great. One thing I would say is, and I am concerned about how it might sound to start with this, but I think it's important, is that you don't need to worry so much about what your specific diagnosis is, or whether hyperactive impulsive versus inattentive and so on. It's not to say that that stuff isn't relevant, or that it's a waste of time or anything like that. It's that what we're ultimately going to be talking about is how to manage your finite resources, right? All finite resources. There's only so much you can do of X, Y, Z, whatever. So if you're wanting to change what you're doing in terms especially of finishing things or starting things, then we have to look at where are your resources going? Where do you want them to be going instead? And one of the things that people tend to spend a lot of resources on that isn't necessarily super helpful is, actually with partly what we're just talking about, it's not that it's never helpful, but let me say that differently. One of the things that is usually very, very helpful, but in some cases is not helpful, but because it's usually very helpful, we keep doing it even in cases where it's not helpful, is trying to analyze why something is happening. So this first thing I'm going to say is like relatively practical. The only question that matters is what is worth trying next. Every other question only matters insofar as it helps to answer that first question. So questions like, why is this happening, can be a very, very helpful thing to ask and to explore, so long as it results in us being able to answer that first question of what is worth trying next. Note, it's not what will work, not what will happen, what is worth trying next, because there's two components here to talk about. There's the value and the cost. So here's a general statement, is that mostly people who get diagnosed with ADHD, especially later in life, mostly people like that really don't have a good sense of what things cost to do and how much they can afford. So not only how much does something cost, but also what is my budget in the first place. A lot of that has to do with the fact that culturally, we all get the idea that we're taught that cognition is free, that it costs nothing to think, which is just observably, demonstrably not true, also scientifically and logically not true, right? We have a finite capacity to think, even if it didn't draw on resources that diminish and need to be replenished, which it does. But even if it didn't, we have a limited capacity to think in any given moment. You can only think about so many things. And so there are processes that are there are processes that dictate what things we think about, what things we notice, how much and why. And those processes are not conscious, and we cannot consciously control them. We can influence them. We can't control them in the moment, meaning you cannot choose to pay attention to something. You can, however, choose to do things that make it more likely that you will pay attention to something in the moment. And more, you can choose to do things that will shift those processes so that in the future, you will be more likely to pay attention to that thing, that kind of thing, or less likely to pay attention to that thing.
I'm curious for this person, if they're up for commenting more, like what aspect of getting late diagnosed is weighing the most on them, that they're
why?
like looking.
Why?
What?
Why are you curious about that?
Because it seems like they want help, and I wasn't.
Well, they do want help, but why that specifically?
I was thinking about like an amalgamation of a lot of clients I've worked with, and it seems like sometimes the initial diagnosis is a relief, and then there's a period of time in which it actually feels like life gets a little bit worse before it gets better, but that plays out in many different ways for people because they learn like new terms and new ways of viewing themselves, and it sort of like blows up their conceptualization of themselves. But that plays out in many different ways. So I'm curious about like what aspect of being newly diagnosed is impacting this person the most that they would be looking for support with.
If I am understanding you accurately, and I might not be, because that's relatively abstract language, which is fine, but just more open to interpretation. What you're getting at is that you would like more specific information about what the problem is that they're experiencing. Like, what specifically are they wanting to change?
It might not be wanting to change. It might, I don't know what the problem is.
Wait, what? The problem is a thing that you want to change. You want it to be different than it is.
Yeah, so then I guess, yes, technically, more specifically, what is the thing they want changed that is happening as a
Yeah.
result of their new diagnosis?
So I agree with you that that could be very useful because yes, it was tips you might give someone that's diagnosed late or diagnosed in their 30s, right? But generally, we would call that late diagnosis. Usually, anything after childhood, we generally call late diagnosis. And that is very broad. Like, I could give a million different tips, including like there's a subset, there's a bunch of tips and suggestions that I could give to anyone diagnosed with ADHD, regardless of what time of their life it was. There are some that are going to be more relevant to somebody that's diagnosed later, et cetera. And yes, I think that's a very important point, is that we want to be specific and practical, because again, what's worth trying next, well, really depends on what is happening. What I was getting at there before you pointed that out, which again, I'm glad, and please feel free to jump in and say more specifically what are some of the things that are happening that you would like to be different. I know that you identified finishing tasks when drive or motivation wanes is a problem, but you can be more specific than that. And then starting tasks that are intimidating or unapproachable is identified as a problem, but you can be more specific than that too. Because the thing is that people, again, generally, and especially for people who are diagnosed as adults, people who are diagnosed with ADHD tend to be very, very cognitively oriented. We want to solve problems by thinking about them. So we'll do this thing where we reverse engineer, or we go on a process of like, starting at step 1 and arriving at step 5, and then we're just talking about step 5 and skipping all that other stuff. So like, specific practical thing, pretty much every person I've ever worked with who's diagnosed ADHD or struggles with executive dysfunction has said, I procrastinate and I need to stop procrastinating. And they say that as though that statement is specific, as though procrastinating is an identifiable activity, and that there is some like invariable personality trait that causes a person to do it. And so we just kind of like if someone was saying like, I'm diabetic, so what do? I don't need a lot more. I guess I don't know specifically, but like as a doctor, I wouldn't need a lot more information than that to be able to identify like, well, it's something like this. We might need to titrate the exact levels, but you need more insulin and whatever, right? These things are not like that. We're talking in very abstract terms. And so what I was saying there is we can shape these non-conscious processes. We can incentivize or disincentivize ourselves from paying attention to or doing certain things in the future. Does that make sense? And one of those things is it's not about what we understand, it's about reality. That's part of what like causes this, causes the dysfunction, causes like a bit of a schism between what I think should be happening and what actually is happening, is that we follow the rules of reality, even if we don't think that they're valid. You know what I'm saying? Like you can believe that you can fly through the air by willing it to be so, but you don't actually do that, even if you believe that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to focus on what actually happens first, because a lot of what's going on is that people arrive at unhelpful conclusions and then don't backtrack. So, in other words, I'm supposed to do my homework today or whatever, sitting down to do my homework, and I'm like, don't want to open it up, having a hard time like looking at it. Like, I don't know, I'm thinking about other things. No, I got to focus. Then I'm finding excuses to do other things. Finally, a few hours later, I finally get around to doing my homework, right? Would we say that that was procrastinating? 100%. That is an accurate use of that word. If I then go and tell somebody I was procrastinating, that gives them no information about which they can do anything, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
on what? What was the thing you were supposed to be doing? What was the context in which you were supposed to be doing it? What was the context in which you actually ended up doing it? What happened in between? So we were talking earlier about the tight cycle between ideation and execution. ADHDers tend to live in ideation. We love to think about stuff and then struggle, as you've identified, with getting started, struggle with switching from here's an idea I have to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I try to be careful about, because again, this is the more cognitively oriented somebody is, the more that this statement is true. But it's true for everyone. What other people demonstrate to us, not tell us, but demonstrate to us is important, very much shapes our non-conscious processes and what we treat as important. Does that make sense? So like, if I have kids, if I say to my child, hey, listen, do this thing, and then afterwards I'll give you this thing that you want, right? And then they go and do that thing, and then I give them the thing. I have now incentivized them to listen to what I say, because as a result of listening to what I said, they were able to take an action and get a reward that they were looking for. If I say, do this, and then you'll get this thing, and they do it, and then I don't do the thing that I said I would give them, I've now disincentivized them from listening to me in the future, because what's the point in listening to me? Because it doesn't bear out in reality. Now, does this flip on and off like a switch, like binary? No, it's tiny little micro adjustments constantly. A common saying is like, or maybe not saying, a common idea is that if a person's words and actions don't align, you should treat their actions as the thing that is more meaningful. If they say one thing and do another, treat them like somebody who does the thing that they did, not like somebody who says the thing that they said. Does that make sense? If I say I'm not going to rob you, and then I rob you, and then I say I'm not going to rob you, and then I do it again, like, it would be foolish to continue to treat me like someone who's not going to rob you when I keep actually doing it, even though I'm saying I'm not. What's up, Caitlin?
I feel a little disconnected because I can't see the comments. My phone isn't loading any of the messages.
Well,
And I'm curious if the person said anything more.
3 more just popped up right after you started talking, so they were clearly writing it and then had to like break it.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, sometimes simple stuff like cleaning up the house can be difficult to keep up with. Part of that is also just having 2 young kids, but I feel like it often gets messier than would be understandable. I for sure procrastinate all the time. It'd probably be fair to say I'm procrastinating right now because I have some work to get done, but I'm having trouble starting. The part that stresses me out more, though, is the work tasks. I have a bunch of different tasks that I have on my plate, but what seems to get done most reliably are the things that I find easy or I find quick to do, and often other tasks that are larger and harder for me to get done languish. If it helps, I can relate a lot to what you've been saying about loving to be in ideation and execution is a struggle. What really gets me to complete stuff is hard deadlines or external pressure. Okay. Now, I hear all that. That's great. Thank you for giving the additional context. Everything you just said there is really, really common for ADHDers, not exclusive to ADHDers, but for people who are cognitively oriented generally. So let's talk about some of this. Some of what you're saying is a little contradictory, not contradictory, but revealing of or implying some contradictions. What gets me to complete stuff is hard deadlines or external pressure. I believe that, or I believe that when there are hard deadlines and or external pressure, you get things done. Or I guess we could say, at least safely, that you are much more likely to get things done when there are hard deadlines or external pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But usually I could actually just say you get stuff done when there's a hard deadline or external pressure. Well, what that then implies about all these tasks that you're not doing is that, oh no, I missed the chance to thank Strong-Willed Nun for the promotion opportunity. That's a comment from Bass Insider. That's the name of the spam commenter earlier. What that implies then is that the things that you are not doing don't have hard deadline, don't have external pressure, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it might seem tedious, but we want to look at what we mean by deadlines and pressure. But generally what we're saying, we could sum it up as the things that you're not getting done aren't really causing problems by not doing them. Now, are some of them things that would be beneficial? Let's say cleaning up the house, for example, that would be beneficial if you did them? Sure. Is it causing a problem that you're not doing it? No, generally. Again, maybe there's some specifics, but generally that's a no. And if it was, you would be doing it, because there'd be another way to talk about hard deadlines or external pressure is to say there is some meaningful, real consequence to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a very long leash at work. I have a bunch of projects that I've been assigned, and people just kind of trust me to get them done. So let's talk about that specifically. Because generally what's happening there is the people who are assigning you this stuff also don't have a lot of information about what exactly it is that they want out of what they've assigned you to, and don't have a lot of information about how to go about doing it. That's why they're assigning it to you. Now, that's not always true. Sometimes, it's a matter of just like, I could do it, but I'm delegating it to you because I think you can do it. But this idea that you have a long leash and that they trust you to get it done, that typically aligns with like the person who is assigning you these things couldn't do it either. If you tried to nail them down on like, what's a step-by-step process for me to do this, they wouldn't know that either. Otherwise they would have given. That's if you want practical advice that won't always be actionable, like because of the context. Go back to the person who assigned you something and say, give me a actionable, like step-by-step process. Meaning like step 1, do X. Step 2, do X. Do Y, whatever. Now, I know that there are social pressure reasons that people don't always feel comfortable going to do that, especially something that you got assigned a long time ago. And now if you go ask them for that, you're like, oh, well, now they're going to think I haven't been thinking about it or working on it, even though I should have. Whatever. And that's a crap situation to be in, because as a general rule, without more specifics, if someone asks you to do something and you don't know exactly how to go about doing it in actionable terms, you want to ask that person in actionable terms. Either they will give you those, or they don't have them, which is, we want to know the difference between these two different scenarios. Or they do have them, but they won't give them to you for some other reason, whether that's because they're testing you to see how you'll do without that information, or because they are upset with you and they don't want to make it easier for you, or because they're just overloaded and their resources are going to other things and they can't afford to do that with you. And you want to identify the differences because they're different things. Specifically, if they have a set of actionable steps to take. So you've assigned me, do the whatever report, the TPS report, I think is the thing from that movie Office Space. Do the TPS report or whatever. If it's the case where you have a specific set of actionable steps to take on that, what that means is that doing that, there's a right way and a correct way and an incorrect way to do it.
Yep.
You do it the way that you want it done if you have a set of steps, because in that case, you're saying do the TPS report as a shorthand for do these 18 steps. You're just summing it up in one little statement. And if I don't know those 18 steps, then I can't do it because I don't know what you want me to do. Other times they're saying do the TPS report, and that what they want done is the outcome. They're just interested in getting a certain type of information or accomplishing a certain thing. They don't care about how it's done as long as you get there. Oftentimes when people are struggling, this happens with like writing assignments in school a lot too. It's because you're not sure which of those two things it is, and you don't want to clarify for whatever reason, or you're not aware of the idea that it would be beneficial to clarify. Meaning, is there a specific way you want me to do this or not? If not, is there a specific outcome you're looking for or not?
Mhm.
Because anything that you've been assigned, you are doing for the sole reason that someone else has asked you to do it. That means that that other person who asked you to do it has the ability to deem that you have done it well or not. Because
Mhm.
they're the one who requested it, they know what they want.
Mhm.
You'll notice people will struggle a lot more with things, even though we talk about it as like, I get things done with deadlines and external pressure. We will tend to struggle a lot more getting started on things that have been assigned to us by other people. There are multiple reasons for that, but this is one of those.
Mhm.
Here's another comment from another commenter. It helps me to make a kind of timeline and make the consequences for not following the timeline more concrete, if that makes sense. So like, I know it takes me 3 days to finish this kind of project. If I don't get the outline done by Tuesday, I will have too much to do on Wednesday to keep up. And then G31, the original comment there. Yeah, generally the people requesting the project are people who aren't capable of doing it themselves. I'm in a position where I complete projects requested by my employer's clients. I sort of operate as my own project manager and account manager and developer, and my employer just leaves me to handle my work alone unless I ask for help. The pressure is probably primarily self-inflicted because I have a generally good rapport with those clients. And then Bast Insider, it still runs into the issue that my brain knows Tuesday is a fake deadline. I could get it done on Wednesday, but making the consequence more clear is helpful. Okay,
Mhm.
so I agree. And here's what I mean by deadline. Here's my definition of deadline. And when I work with people, I work to get them to use the word deadline only in this way and not in any other way. There is a
Yeah.
point in time at which, if this thing has not been accomplished, a problem will occur. Meaning,
Mhm.
there is some identifiable point in time that if we pass that point and this hasn't been accomplished, something will happen that I don't want to happen.
Mhm.
We can get more, sometimes I get more, because some deadlines, it's like a binary thing. Once that deadline is passed, the thing is done. There's nothing. Sometimes it's once that deadline is passed, a bad thing is happening now that gets worse and worse the longer it lasts, but you can still get it done, right? But that's what a deadline means. So
Mhm.
giving oneself a deadline, just like giving oneself rewards and punishments, which is very common advice, as a general rule, doesn't do anything. It does,
Mhm.
doing that kind of stuff does correlate to doing the thing that you're giving yourself the rewards and punishments around, but not because of the rewards or the punishments. They both result
Mhm.
from the same underlying thing. And yes, part of what you're talking about there, Bast Insider, is looking not only at the value of something, but the cost of it. What is it going to cost me to accomplish this? Which nobody knows. We're all bad at everybody is bad at estimating what it will cost them to do something. The more that we've done something, the better we are at estimating what it will cost us to do that thing again. But as a general thing, we don't pay attention to that stuff. So we don't like learn it quickly or put together. We still act that way. So again, a common thing, I got assigned this thing. I was given a deadline of 1 month from now. I'm trying to work on it. I think I should work on it, but I'm not actually working on it. I'm procrastinating, whatever, until 2 days before the thing is due, the deadline. And then I do it. Well,
Mhm.
generally, there are mistakes here, obviously, and that's worth looking at. But generally, you are starting to do it in just enough time to get it done by the deadline, which is
Yeah.
evidence that you have, on some level, non-consciously, been tracking how much it costs you to do something like that.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
sometimes we don't. Sometimes we start 2 days before, and then in doing it, we're like, oh shit, like this is going to take me 4 days, and that's a big
Mhm.
problem. But one thing to start with is to track how long something takes you to do. Now,
Mhm.
length of time is not the best, not the optimal way to do this, but it is the easiest way to do this. So it's
Mhm.
generally how we start with people, so that you can start to get more of a sense of how long does something take me. Another very common complaint of ADHDers or people with executive dysfunction issues is I constantly underestimate how long it will take me to do something. I think I'll be out the door in 5 minutes and it actually takes 20 or whatever,
Mhm.
Start tracking that and getting information. But back to the comment that G31 made. Yes, a lot of this is when the task has an actual deadline, actual external pressure, meaning like a bad thing will happen if you don't get it done, you do that. Now there's this separate additional thing where you think of something as, if I don't get this done, it will be a problem. But you think that inaccurately. Most of the stuff that you are struggling to do, that you're like, I really should do this and I'm not doing this, most of it's going to fall in that second category, where it's stuff that isn't actually going to cause a problem if you don't do it, even though you think that it does. Now, that doesn't mean it's not worth doing, because again, things can make things better. Getting it done can make things better, but that's a different thing from, if I don't get it done, something bad will happen. Length of time is great because the business works under a billable hours model, right? And that's why we do, that's why we do billable hours. That's why, for the most part, like all compensation, not all, but the vast majority of compensation in our culture is based off of the amount of time that someone is expected to spend. That's why we do this like 40-hour work week thing, even though people don't actually work that time. It's easier, it's suboptimal, because it incentivizes all kinds of inefficient things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I now have to demonstrate or make it seem as though I have worked for 40 hours because that's what I'm getting paid for, is my time, rather than just accomplishing the thing I'm meant to accomplish, and however long it takes me, who cares? You're paying me the same either way, right? I have extra stuff on my plate where I got to just make the boss, whether that's coming into the office or there's all kinds of stuff. Anyway, yeah, like I know if I don't, this is Bass Insider. Yeah, like I know if I don't get work done by 2 p.m., I might not have time to ask coworkers questions if I need help before they leave the office. So I'm trying to practice recognizing 2 p.m. as a real deadline. Okay, so here's something, again, relatively general, because we're still being relatively general here.
Yeah.
But can be very helpful across the spectrum of these things. Separate this into 2 tasks. Any task you're assigned, we break it down, blah, 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 whatever. We'll talk about that. But you are actually getting 2 tasks. The first task is figure out how you're going to do this. The second task is do it. What should actually be done as early as possible is the first task. Figure out how you're going to do this. You should do that as soon as you are able. The second task, doing it, you should do that as late as possible. This is not advice from me. This is an explanation of how things work, right? There is inherent incentive to figure out what you're going to do at the beginning, because that's where you're figuring out how much is this going to cost me. If I'm like, okay, I would have to do this, I'd have to do this. Oh, shoot, I would have to ask for information from so-and-so. Well, now I know that. I've identified that right away, and I know that it's something I got to get that piece done before 2 o'clock or before Friday or whatever. But some of these things you work through, I'll do this, 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 that. I'm not going to need any input from anybody else. And so it doesn't matter whether I get that done by 2 p.m. or not. You want to figure out what you're going to do as soon as possible. Do it. This is not true of everything, but everything that you are assigned, do it as late as possible. There is inherent reason for that. It's not a moral failure to put something off until the end. If nothing else, because we're running a long time, there's lots to go on here, but one specific thing that is always true is you will have more information later on. What if the client comes back and changes their mind about what they wanted? Then it is better to have waited to have done it, right? What if you come up with a great idea about how to do it 2 weeks from now? Better to do it after that, right? You get more information. We're talking about latent learning. Even if you're not doing something specifically, just by existing, letting it cook in the back of your mind, taking it. It's like that thing from movies and whatever, where someone says something seemingly unrelated, and then the other character's like, oh, you're a genius, because like the thing you said that was unrelated clicked something for me. Here's another inherent reason, if you're given an assignment, to do it as late as possible. You could die. You could die before it's due. And if that's the case, would you rather have spent the last days, hours of your life working on that thing that you're never going to have to worry about whether it was turned in now? Or would you have rather spent it doing other things? So again, this isn't advice to put it off. I'm saying this is why you do those things late. As a general rule, we are very successful as organisms, meaning like we live and we continue to live. If you're asking these questions, You have survived everything that you've encountered to this point in your life. What's
Mm-hmm.
more than that, though, it sounds like, I'm reading between the lines, but it sounds like the two people who are commenting here are both relatively successful by conventional cultural standards. You have
Mm-hmm.
white collar, information focused jobs where you're
Mm-hmm. And
generating.
people relying on them in different ways and trusting them.
Uh, Fast Insider says, memento mori, therefore procrastinate. Yeah. Remember that you will die, therefore procrastinate. And then Fast Insider says, disagree, I'm pretty dead. Yes, procrastinate is a word that I generally don't let people use, not because it's unhelpful or inaccurate in and of itself, but because it blocks more specific and more useful
Mm-hmm.
exploration. If you have to
Mm-hmm.
label what you're doing as something else, then you're giving me, when you call it procrastinating, all you're telling me is I was supposed to do it at a time and I didn't do it at that time, but I also didn't give up on doing it. I intend to do it or I did it later. That's all. I don't know anything else about the situation. Even just something like I don't know what to do, or I had a hard time getting myself to start. Even those statements give me more information that is specific about what's going on that I can do stuff with. Anyway, we work the way we
I'm
work.
so happy that G1 commented or whatever their username is. I don't see, but that's
Yeah,
great, and I was glad about that.
like millions, billions of years of evolution has led to an
Mm-hmm.
organism that operates in a particular way. Just because we come up with an idea that we should operate differently than we do, now sometimes we have good ideas and it's worth trying to change ourselves to operate in that way. Sometimes we
Yeah.
have bad ideas. I pause there to stop myself from swearing. Sometimes we have bad ideas, and making ourselves do those things leaves us worse off. And we have protective measures built in. I tell the story in the past of my son when he was like 4, jumping off of our little, like, step, basically like this a bunch of times. And then finally he said, Dad, I'm trying to like jump and land on my belly flat on the ground, but I can't do it because the body has protective things built in to stop you from doing some bad ideas. Can you override those? Yes. Stunt people with enough
Yep.
training and whatever, they can jump and fall flat. Even if it hurts, they can get themselves to do it. Right. Here's an interesting thing.
I just zip lined this weekend. That reminds me of that. I was like, I am jumping off a tree in a harness. Whew.
Comment there. Dang, almost caught Brandon in another swear. I did say the S word earlier today in this
Oh, you
stream.
did?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even catch you. Baston brings out the swearing in Brandon.
Kid, that's because some part of you recognizes this is a bad idea. Yeah. Here's an interesting fact. Lungs hold approximately enough oxygen for a body to survive for 4 minutes.
Wow.
When you hold the breath, on average, people can hold their breath for somewhere between 30 and 90 seconds. Why? Not because you're actually running like out of air by that point, but because there are signals built in. And in fact, that signal is keyed on the presence of carbon dioxide, not the lack of oxygen. That's why it can be tricked by hyperventilating and stuff. As carbon dioxide builds up, you have signals like you must breathe now. And you feel like you're going to die if you don't. And it hurts very badly. These signals are important. Like our culture is weird in this way where when I say that, a lot of people I think will hear that and be like, well, that's dumb that I act like I'm running out of air when I still have 3 minutes worth of air left. Like, no, it's good that we do that. We shouldn't. Another very common thing I'll get from ADHDers especially is I wish I had like the ability to read out exactly how many resources I have available to myself at any given time and know how tired am I in some objective way. And no, that would be terrible. If that would be beneficial to you, then that's how it would work. That's what evolution does. It selects for things that are adaptive that help us to survive. It's bad because then you would be pushing right up to the limit of death all the time. And people are way overdoing it. So very general answer to a general question, but G31, you're trying to do way too much. That's why you're not getting it all done. You can't afford to do that many things. And you have to make some decisions about what things are going to get cut. If you're going to start doing, this is always true, if you're going to start doing something you haven't been doing, then there's something you have been doing that's going to get cut. And you got to
Mm-hmm.
make decisions about that. Now, everyone is always going to immediately, they're like, I know what things I should cut. And then they list off recreational activities. I got to stop looking at my phone. I got to stop watching TV. I got to stop.
Stop doing the one fun thing I do once a week for myself that doesn't involve parenting or something. Yeah.
Which, as a reminder, evolution. Things that hurt us, things that when we do them, we feel pain, are generally speaking bad for us. That's why we evolved to have a pain response to it. Things that we enjoy and feel good to us, generally speaking, are things that are good for us. It's not good because we
Mm-hmm.
like it or enjoy it. We enjoy it because it is good.
Mm-hmm.
Rest is actually important, even though you don't think that it is important, right? If you push past it, problems happen. Remind me to ask about historical CBT next time from Bass Insider and then G30. Oh, wait. Bass Insider says, I do have that effect on people, I think in reference to you saying bring out swears at me. And then remind me to ask about historical CBT next time. And then G31 says cognitive behavioral therapy, I assume. And sure, yeah, happy to talk about CBT. Reminder, we won't be doing this next week. I'm
No
out.
stream next week.
We'll be
Yeah.
back, and
2
we gotta wrap
weeks
up
is
here.
the next stream.
Yep. People generally have a sense that they should be doing some stuff that they don't feel like doing, right? That it's important that I make myself do things that I don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's truth to that. If you have that sense, it's because it's true. Thanks for the heads up. Yep. No worries. Now, we are wrong all the time about what specific thing is the thing that I should do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, cognitive behavioral therapy. So this is a metaphor I like to give to people. Imagine, for now, we're not going to break it down more specifically than this today because we have to wrap up, but imagine all your resources together, whatever they are, the limited amount of resources you have. Think of that like money that you have in the bank account. And then think about doing stuff as buying stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, with money, some things are investments. You spend money on something, but then you make more money off of it than what you spent. Other things are debits. They liabilities, whatever. You lose money. What if I am an impulsive spender? You are an impulsive spender in this metaphor.
Me too, man.
Probably in real life too, I'm sure. I think that's what you're likely referencing. But that's the point in this metaphor.
Yeah.
So if you thought that you had $1 million in your bank account, then when somebody was like, hey, can I have $100? You'd be like, yeah, whatever, fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, that looks kind of interesting. It costs $1,000, but like, no big deal. It's kind of interesting. You'd buy it. If you actually have $1 million, those choices make sense. That's more or less optimized, right? If you are inaccurate about how much money you have and you actually only have $1,000 in the bank account, then you're going to spend it on stuff that you would never have prioritized if you had known how few resources you had available. And you're going to run out of money because more or less you're spending your money based on what comes to you first, chronologically, not evaluating whether I should save some of this money for later.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens with what we're doing. You're talking about motivation and drive running out, which is something everybody talks about in our culture. Like I got this, like, let's go and take care of stuff. And then I'm tired. So by doing things, something is depleted. And then I run out of the ability to do certain kinds of things, whatever. So here's the thing. Mostly what people are talking about in this metaphor is they're saying, I want to buy more stuff than I can afford to buy. How do I do that? And the answer to that question is, you can't. And if you want to, you have to earn more money. You have to have more income. So until you do that, you can't spend more than you're currently spending, no matter, there's no secret sauce, no tip or trick I can give. And if there's some important things that you are not spending your money on, then you have to cut something else that you are spending money on in order to do that. And you don't want to do that because nobody does. And that's one of those things that's important to do, even though you don't want to. The other thing is that there are things you can do that will earn you more money than they cost you. And if you want to spend more money, then you have to do more of that stuff. And you don't want to have to do that stuff. What we're talking about in this metaphor is things like rest and recovery, leisure time, enjoyment, socialization, whatever. You think that that's bad. You think you shouldn't have to do it. And you're trying to come up with any way to be able to avoid doing more of that. but be able to do more productive stuff. That's wishful thinking. That's the stuff that you don't want to have to do, but that you have to do if you want to be able to accomplish more things. This one of the core lies in our culture is that if you are mean to people, they will do what you want even more. That is not true. And people do that to themselves. We beat ourselves up in an effort to motivate ourselves to do something that doesn't work. It makes you able to do less. So first we want to see what things can you stop doing. And almost always something that you're currently doing that you think provides benefit, but actually is just a drain, is beating yourself up about what you're doing and not doing. Trying to overly analyze why you're doing or not doing these things. Those are things that cost resources that aren't generally ending up being helpful. So we want to disincentivize that. That's why I reframed your question earlier, Caitlin, from the more abstract, what element of the thing is bothering you, into the more practical, what specific thing is happening that you want different. Because we cognitively oriented people, and I'm one of them, we love to sit in cognition and we love to pull everybody into it with us. Someone's like, hey, you got to mow your lawn. And I'm like, I know, but I'm feeling unmotivated. You're talking about a practical thing. And then I immediately pulled it into this cognitive, philosophical, abstract idea. And then you're like, nah, man, you just got to mow the lawn. And I'm like, it's not that simple. There's psychology involved. Let's talk and think about this some more. And it's not that stuff's not true. It's just, how do I make more money, Brandon? Maybe strong-willed none can teach us.
I love that clap back or whatever it's called.
Be able to do more. Okay, good. Number one, first most important rule on this recalibrating thing: reality wins. If you think something should be a certain way, but in reality it is this other way, then your idea is wrong. Now, changing these things is not something we generally can do by ourselves. That's why it's useful to talk to other people. They're the ones who gave you the ideas in the first place. Other people will help you change them. There's processes to engage in. But in the meantime, another metaphor I use, if someone's golfing and every time they end up hitting the ball to 20 feet to the left of where they're aiming, they could spend years and thousands of dollars trying to correct whatever the hell's going on in their swing. There's another swear. I'm feeling rushed because we got to wrap up. Or if the error is consistent, then you can just aim 20 feet of the right to where you actually want the ball to go. If you know about yourself that you feel like you should be able to do more, when in reality, that's not what's happening, then even if you can't change that sense or that idea anytime soon, you can still recognize that it is erroneous, and you can start treating it as erroneous. You'll still feel like you should be able to do more. But then that means if you ever feel like you've done enough, you have done too much. And when you have done the right amount of stuff, you will feel like you haven't done enough. I want you to feel good. I want you to feel good about how much stuff you've done. I want you to be happy. But reality wins, right? And so if we get to choose between, you either feel bad about how much you're doing, even though you're doing X amount of stuff, and that's what's happening in reality, or you can feel better about how much you're doing, but it causes all these problems. You know, you do way too much in one day and then crash the next day or whatever. Then sometimes we just got to deal with something doesn't feel good. You want to work on changing it, but practicality matters more. How do I make more money, Brandon? General rule, and then we're going to go. Things that you enjoy make you money in this metaphor. General. That does it sometimes. Sometimes it's a payday loan and makes you a lot of money in the short term, and it's going to cost you later. Sometimes you're in an urgent, desperate enough straits that that's something you need to do, and it's worth it, even though you got to pay interest. Other times it's stuff that's more sustainable, long term, whatever. But all right, good to be with you all. I will be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you for all
We'll
the
see you guys in 2 weeks.
Back
I
up.
loved the engagement today. That was wonderful.
So what you're saying is I don't have executive dysfunction. My perspective is just wrong in this discussion anyway. Well, yes and no. You do have executive dysfunction. Part of the reason that you have executive dysfunction is because you have an inaccurate read of what is going on. Does that make sense? Like if I think something will take me 5 minutes and it actually takes me 20, I do show up late, and that is executive dysfunction. Things aren't happening the way I'm trying to make them happen. That's one of the reasons that plays into it. Oh, okay, that makes sense. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.